Welcome everyone, and hello for those of you on Zoom joining us, and for those who are present. I know that we're going to be doing some wrap up here that's going to be offered by Francisco. So Francisco, I am going to call the meeting to order, and it's about 7:09, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
It's good to see you all again, and thank you for joining us this evening. Like usual, we've got a decent amount of work to get through, so let me go over our agenda now. We have started to prepare the plan in its draft format based upon the examples or the samples that we showed you at our last meeting and the one that you preferred. So I will quickly review that with you, give you a sense as to how it looks, and make sure we're moving in the right direction. I would like to revisit our plan goals. We introduced you to some recommended goals and a few strategies at our last meeting, just to get you thinking about those. And I'd like to come back to those and spend some time discussing the goals. We have since then developed a pretty sizable list of strategies and actions. So it's really the implementation component of the plan. And we want to review those with you. We're not going to go through every line item in that, but I do want to call attention to some of the more important items, and also get your feedback if you've had a chance to review that document. And finally, we did not get a chance to get to this last meeting, but we want to update you on our zoning review for affordable housing opportunities and some of the findings from that review. And we'll close it out with our next steps.
Very good.
Okay. The draft plan format. Here is the format that we discussed. It's a landscape format. And this is a potential cover page. We could use any image you like on the cover page. We could use combination images. I was in town about 2 weeks ago, and I spent the afternoon just driving around, looking at things and taking pictures. And it was a beautiful day, as you could see. So I grabbed some really nice pictures. And that being said, if you have really good pictures of Berlin or know anyone that has really good pictures of town, I would very much welcome them. Images, they say a picture says 1,000 words, and images definitely have a place in this document. We don't want to just throw them around to fill pages. We do want to use them very intentionally to help reinforce ideas. But they're really important to communicate the value and the sense of place of Bristol. Which is why I picked this particular image as a cover. But if you have ideas otherwise, I'm very receptive to any image you have to offer up or any ideas you have as to what we include or don't include.
Francisco, so we know you're tired today because you said Bristol instead of Berlin. So I'm going to help you.
I just came off. My gosh. I just came out of a Bristol meeting. I'm sorry. I came out of a 2-hour Bristol Zoom. So
Good catch, Jim.
my apologies. I'm sorry.
Gonna nip that in the bud.
I rarely do that. Very rarely do that. Okay. Berlin, and I'm confident this is a picture of Berlin and not Bristol.
It does not look like Bristol to me.
Okay. All right. So that would be the cover, the contents. We typically like to use a color coding within the document to help you orient you as to what section of the document you're in. And we could use any colors you like. It's an example of a nice range, nice color palette. And so most of the items in that section would be accented with red, and that's how we would use colors. And let me show you what that looks like. Introduction, and here's our color coding. So you'll notice that that bluish, steely blue color is used on the cover page of the section and in some of the graphic boxes. And in the introduction, it's our introduction to Berlin. It's our introduction to the plan itself and to how the plan is organized, the various requirements of the plan. We introduce our vision, the plan's goals, the process through which we develop this plan. We include some summary on the community engagement and outreach that we did, including survey responses, public workshop, thematic meeting, summaries. And we'll provide an overview of demographic trends and other trends in town. So it's kind of like an executive summary type overview that we would get into in much more detail in each of the chapters or sections that follows. For example, housing, we will have a housing chapter where we really get into detail on housing, but this would give us a brief overview of some of the trends. Okay, so that's, we haven't gotten too far with this document. We didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. We wanted to put it in front of you, see if it looked right to you, or do we have the right format? How does it strike your eye?
I think it looks nice.
I think so, like the
Yeah, I like the layout.
I like the colors. I like the layout because it draws you in.
I like the use of the pictures too.
The format's good. Good format.
We try not to cram too much on the page. We like to leave a little bit of white space.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm somebody who actually wants to read it.
Yeah.
So you have some text, for example, on this one, some text on the left in like a blue block.
Right.
What's the purpose of the highlighting? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is the vision statement. So,
okay.
Right, we really want to focus on that. We want that to pop out separately. It's not just part of our narrative here. It exists all on its own. So we would use boxes or colors to call out special text, such as the vision statement.
Okay.
And Francesco, each section would have a designated color, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So
the page number would be mounted on.
Right. So right here in the goals, each one of these goals is a section of the regulations, starting with environmental resources, followed by housing, economic development, transportation, facilities and services, and cultural resources. And that would, the page tabs would correspond in color. The accent features, the boxes would correspond. You notice this blue is the same as this blue, it's just a lighter shade. The graphics would use corresponding elements. And the purpose of that is so that you're oriented within the plan. You just have a strong sense as to what section you're in just by flipping through it. You can quickly find your place in the plan. And there's a little variety throughout. You know, if blue is not your color and you can't stand it, we don't want to do the whole document in blue because you'll be turned off. So we'll give you some relief in the next section.
Well, I think it's also interesting because you're not, when you put the draft plan format out and you have the different headers noted by its individual color, it's not like you're running the rainbow, so to speak. And that's good that you kind of mix up the blues and the reds, because sometimes when you have a book where the colors all meld together in this beautiful like rainbow thing, it's hard to find the beginning of the section. So if you wanted to go to a specific point, it's very easy to find it.
That's our intent, correct.
Yeah.
We will use, and let me show you some of these charts. We will sometimes use an accent color. And what I mean by that is if we had a particularly interesting statistic or trend, by example, in the housing permits here. 2012 was a kind of a banner year compared to some of the years that followed. If we really wanted to call attention to that, we would make that bar red, and that would really make it pop on the page. So we will introduce some accent colors for the sake of really drawing your eye to it.
Good. No, I think the layout's nice. I kind of like it, a landscape like that, but what do we call it? A coffee table book? Who knows, maybe we'll intrigue people into actually reading it.
I hope so.
Yeah. It's much improved over the last one.
Okay, so if you're comfortable with this look, we can keep moving in this direction. And there are refinements that we can make. You know, I realize it would be beneficial for you to see it all together, all the sections. And, you know, we will obviously get you, when we're at that point, a draft version of it all together. And if there's some refinements that you would like to see to the format, we can make them at that point.
Okay, excellent.
As long as that refinement isn't, we think we like portrait style better. Can you turn the page? That would create a lot of work.
Yeah, that'll really send you screaming from the room.
Yeah, right.
Just in time for Halloween.
Okay, good. So I want to come back to our discussion where we left off with our discussion on goals and strategies. And I'd like to start with the vision statement, just as a reminder. The vision statement really frames everything we're doing. And it also took us probably about 3 meetings before we really pinned this thing down. So I expect the same could be true of our goals. We introduced you to some potential goals last month. And I wanted to spend some time talking about those today to make sure we've got it right. And the way that we've proposed organizing the plan or the implementation components of the plan are, we have the overall vision. That's the framework for everything. That's kind of the constitution of this thing. And then that vision, we have several supporting goals, one for each topic area of the plan. And those goals are reinforced by strategies. Strategies are how you achieve those goals. And the actions are the very specific steps you take as part of one of those strategies. So let's go to our goals. Environmental resources. Let's start with that. And I'll just read each of these to you in case you have trouble seeing the screen. Our environmental resource goal is to continue to protect the town's environmental resources and better connect open space resources through the strategic acquisition and protection of open space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think so. Yeah. Continue to protect.
Okay, and like I said, you could chew on this a little bit. We can come back to it. We can continue to wordsmith. And as I read it out loud, it probably doesn't roll off my tongue as smooth as I'd prefer it to be. So maybe we keep all of the ideas within there and just adjust the wording a little bit.
Okay.
Next. Housing. Ensure that Berlin has a wide selection of housing choice that enables residents to live in town through various stages of life and provides housing opportunities to new residents to the community. Or I might say to residents that are new to the community.
I'm gonna say maybe like 4 residents new to the community, like just.
Or 4. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go to working mode here so I can document some of these thoughts.
So maybe, ensure that Berlin has a selection of housing options that enables residents.
Housing options.
Yeah, get rid of wide.
That enable
Like wide.
Residents live in town through various stages of life. And remind me of what the last part of it that
I was thinking get rid of wide. I feel like that could be misinterpreted.
Where's the why?
Wide.
Wide selection. Berlin has a wide.
Berlin has a selection.
Okay,
of
yeah.
housing
That's right. Well, let's look at the source. I should know.
so for new residents. Is that a little closer?
Yeah, we struck wide, right?
No, it's still. In the first line, they're talking about the word wide. Ensure that
wide.
has a selection of. Unless there's another word.
Yeah.
You can use ample, broad, expanded.
I like ample.
Ample,
Ample or broad, I like, yeah.
ample, broad, deep, expanded, extensive, far-reaching, full, immense. Ample.
Ample just sounds like number. And I think the issue isn't necessarily just the number. It's really about the type, having a selection of type and different price points and all of that. So I like broad a little more than ample.
How about extensive or expanded?
Expanded might work.
Expanded selection, extensive selection.
Just sounds like a lot of new apartment buildings to me.
Yeah, I know.
Wide or expanded or.
Yeah.
Well, what if we don't have a qualifier there? What if we just say ensure that Berlin has a selection of housing options? Options suggest different types, right? Different price points that enables residents to live in town through various stages of life and provides housing opportunities for new residents. What if we leave it just like we have it?
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
All right. Okay,
Okay.
we won't get fancy.
Good.
Not a fancy town.
All right, well, I'll just keep in this working mode so we can make changes on the fly. Economic development. Foster a stable economy that leverages Berlin's location and commercial zones to provide residents with access to goods, services, and employment opportunities while maintaining a diversified property tax base.
I like that.
I think that one's a home run.
That's good.
All right,
That's good.
nailed it. The
You
home
get a
run.
gold star on that one. Whoever, give them extra cup of coffee tomorrow. Whoever thought that one up.
The home run that the Yankees needed that
Yeah.
Never got it.
Never got it.
It's always time for the October surprise. Where's the World Series?
Right.
Oh, yeah, they're all over.
Okay. Transportation.
Yankees are out, it's over.
Transportation, heads up, guys.
All right. Improve and expand transportation options to ensure greater connectivity for all modes of transportation and maintain and improve infrastructure in a sustainable manner.
That was not sitting well with me, and I'm not sure how to correct it.
So
Is or the correct linking word? I forget what are my my types of words, grammar, but should it be greater connectivity of all modes of transportation? Does controlled modes of transportation have connectivity? It does sound awkward. The word "for" sounds awkward.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's, I'm not a scholar in grammar.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about the modes. The modes are walking, bicycling, or using some other two or three wheel device. Driving in your car, transit, carpooling is a form of transit. The mode is a passenger vehicle. Rail. So those are the modes, and then but you need the infrastructure to support those modes, right? So right.
You by expand transportation. That's the word.
Well, okay. Well, let's talk about your sidewalk network. It's limited. It has gaps. It should probably be expanded, in that you need more miles of it.
Okay.
You can also think of expand as in expanding the type of infrastructure that you provide. Berlin doesn't currently have a single mile of bicycle lane. So you might want to expand the facilities offered to residents by providing some of those facilities.
Well, couldn't you just say expand the connectivity for modes of transportation and maintain and improve infrastructure in a sustainable manner? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
in other words, improve and then strike and expand transportation options to ensure greater. Strike that whole thing. So just go improve the connectivity for modes of transportation and maintain and improve infrastructure in a sustainable manner. I don't like the way it sounds, but.
How about while maintaining and improving infrastructure? Get rid of the ands.
Oh, okay, yeah, we got a lot of ands in there. Wow, that makes sense, maintaining.
I'm just thinking, because Maureen, I kept going back to that for all modes. I was thinking improve connectivity between all modes of transportation. I don't know.
Well, it's not necessarily between.
Yeah.
Between can be part of it. You know, when we talk about being able to get from your bicycle to the train station, that's certainly in between modes, but we don't want to limit it to that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do we like two improves in that, or do we want to change one of those?
Well,
you want to change the first one to expand, enhance.
Sure.
Enhance. Nice.
Enhance is a term very often used in transportation planning.
Oh boy.
So
right there.
Fits well there, I think.
Where's it going to go now?
Right at the beginning, just like that. Enhance.
Enhance and improve?
No improve, just enhance.
Yeah, let me read it back to you. Enhance connectivity for all modes of transportation while maintaining and improving infrastructure in a sustainable manner.
Okay, you got that. I like the way it sounds.
All right, see, it takes a village.
Yes.
Okay, next is town facilities and services. Provide, and this should really be a hyphen, I believe, provide high quality services and facilities to residents, property owners, business owners, and visitors. And here we are with sustainable again, but I think it's important. I hate ending those two exactly the same though.
Well,
how about fiscally responsible manner?
Okay, anyone else have thoughts on that?
hang on, let me thesaurus you. Sustainable.
What you got, John?
I don't know. Should have brought my book.
Because I see where you're going with the fiscally responsible, but I'm wondering, like, there might be something that we have to do that we know we can't afford anyway, but we still have to do it.
Let's see. Feasible, viable.
Who's going to the actions page?
Continual.
Money is going to be spent pursuing that.
Unceasing.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you could do is just do some change in the beginning, provide high quality, resilient services and facilities, and then drop the in a sustainable manner at the end. Provide resilient, high quality services and facilities for residents, property owners, businesses, and visitors.
Cut the last 3-4 words out of it.
Right.
Well, then adding in resilient, provide resilient.
So it's a sustainable manner with the name resilient at the beginning.
And visitors, period. Just strike sustainable manner. Right. High quality, resilient services, facilities to residents, property owners, business owners, and visitors. Do we really need visitors in there?
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, if we have different, you know, sporting events or whatever.
Oh, okay.
You know,
People that buy,
you know,
people that come and utilize the,
yeah.
Library.
Our hotels.
No, that's all right. No, I was just.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
Our
All right.
restaurants, we want people to come to our restaurants.
Absolutely. So do we have that as provide high quality resilient services?
Resilient high quality.
Or are we doing provide resilient high quality?
I think
It
it's
sounds
fine.
fine the way it is. Yeah.
It's up to, I don't know. Resilient.
6 one way, half dozen the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
If you want to flip flop them.
no. I just wanted to make sure we're using the right word.
I don't think she sold on resilient.
I don't know. I think of resilient being a person. I don't know.
All right, we comfortable with this for the time being? We can always come back to it.
Yeah, I think
All right.
terms with it. Go ahead.
Okay, and finally, cultural resources. Protect, promote, fund, and continue to act as a steward for Berlin's cultural resources with a special focus on the town's historic properties and farms.
Yeah,
Another good one.
that's another good one because you're protecting the open space.
Yeah, we cover that under
Yeah,
environmental.
and environmental.
Realizing there's some overlap.
Yeah, no, and that's good. I like the overlap. Yeah, I think it's really important we protect our natural resources as much as possible. Some builders will hate me in town, but what can I say? Yeah, I like that one. Just the way it reads.
No changes.
Okay.
How about
Great.
you?
Yeah,
Mr.
I think
Williams.
I like it. I think it incentivizes, town to,
I'm just glad that
like
we
saying
have-
like things like fund and everything. That means, buying more open space and stuff like that. I think that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just glad that we have that option. So many towns, as we had talked before, are so completely built out. The only way they're going to get open space is to knock a bunch of stuff down
Right,
and start planting trees.
Mm-hmm.
right.
So we're blessed with that. But all right, so we're good with that. Thank you.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, so this is going to be a little bit harder.
No.
So we shared with you very recently a packet, a document that is our first cut at putting together a comprehensive set of implementation recommendations that includes all the strategies that would support those goals and the actions that would comprise those strategies. And what we're really looking for you, we're not necessarily looking to you to have to wordsmith those for us unless you have some ideas. we're really looking for you to confirm that, we've got some good ideas. Or to cross things off the list that you just don't think are appropriate to Berlin or don't think should be documented in the plan. So we try to keep it as simple as possible for you by asking you to either comment yes, no, or if you're really unsure, you think it requires discussion, you just don't know, you don't know enough about it, a question mark. And so we don't expect that you have that, you've completed that process yet, but we wanted to make sure we got you moving in that direction. So what I would like to do is briefly go through this. And if you had an opportunity to look through this document and you have any comments or questions, we definitely want to entertain those this evening. And we also have Jim called attention to a few items that we think would be also worthwhile to review with you tonight.
Okay.
All right. So let's start with.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Oh, please do. Go ahead.
I want to bounce back to the last slide, if I could. Environmental resources. I'm kind of channeling one of the members that isn't here and that I see was previously discussed but isn't mentioned, is the water resources. And I'm worried about excluding that.
Yes.
Because they've been brought up several times.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, we were just kind of including that within environmental resources, but if we should specifically call out.
I think we should.
I'm feeling as though it has been something that's been talked about a little bit passionately about specifically our water resources.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
So I'll work that in for the next version. Okay.
Okay. No, not a problem.
All right.
Thank you.
So we are starting out with environmental resources where we do talk about water resources. We've got some strategies and action items to ensure that your water quality is preserved and water courses are protected. And we have, as I mentioned, a number of strategies. And that starts with ensuring that the zoning regulations adequately protect environmental resources, that you prioritize the protection, and so here I am right here, prioritize the protection and acquisition of open space and improve linkages between existing open space properties, that you adopt and implement low impact policies and practices, and that you continue the oversight and protection of environmentally sensitive areas. That's 1 through 4. We've got a few more on subsequent slides. Any questions or comments on those particular strategies?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the actions and I am a bit concerned about some of the restrictive, like adding restrictive regulations. I don't really, when I think about like the Golden Triangle and everything there about the ridgeline protection, I think that's a big economic goal of us to get that developed. The majority of that land that is developable is on the ridgeline of that property. The rest of it is pretty much swamp that was built by beavers. So that one is what concerns me, because I think that could negatively impact some of the properties around town. I don't think that's, fair to the property owners or looking down the road. I think that could do more economic damage than good, considering, like I said, the Golden Triangle is one of our last big properties that we could do something really good with.
Brian, are you talking about the second one?
Yes.
Okay.
Right up here.
I always thought the ridgeline, if I'm thinking back to the last POCD, which I was not part of.
Yeah.
But I remember when they wrote the ridgeline, one of the examples that was brought up was in South Kensington, where you have the big open fields right before you hit Meriden. you know, I'd have those walls of mountains there. I don't know, is that ragged? Is that part of the Ragged Mountain chain, or I don't even know.
That's Blue Trail.
Yeah, the Blue Trail. But you know, years ago, I think it was Carabetta wanted to introduce condos into that hillside, and that's one reason why, at the time, there was a consideration for the ridge line that you had to be so many feet from the top. And then remember, over behind the Hawthorne and Silver Ridge, I guess, is up there or something like that. So that was in a play book.
Yes, I'm concerned about the definition of ridge line then.
Yeah.
So maybe more thought could go into that. I see where you're coming from. I also know that a lot of that property now is owned by the town of Berlin, other than, I mean, you have Carabetta's property. I think, and I was actually seeing a few of these things going down.
Yeah.
If you look at one that says require, encourage versus require, I think that we should be approaching, if we want to protect these zones and this land and these open spaces. I think about one thing like our open space development thing, where we should be more encouraging, more incentivizing people, where instead of, you know, I think overstepping into people's property rights.
Yeah.
So I think that that's why I really like the thing where I saw grants, you know, having a fund, strategically require open space. I think those are really good things.
But is the Golden Triangle really on a ridge?
Well, the top of it is, and I remember when we were talking last time, Chris Edge came before us with somebody who was interested in doing something there. I think it fell apart. The idea was to build a road coming off of the turnpike up to that would kind of zigzag up to the top of the ridge, because I mean that's pretty much where all your developable property is.
All right.
So now you use the common ridge.
Yeah.
Because you go down, you have that massive wetlands area. There's really no gaining access through Middletown Road to the residencies, and on the other side, what is that?
72.
That goes to Walmart.
Yeah.
You're still blocked by massive things of wetlands.
Yeah.
So I am concerned.
Yeah. So perhaps we need another word, or.
Well, I mean, but still, we're saying consider adopting protection regulations. It could be, granted, whenever that happens, who knows who's going to be on planning, but it's still up to, at that point, to decide what they're going to be. We're not stating it here that it has to be, you know, so I think that's something, I think it's a good thing to look at, but we don't have to decide it today.
That's
but no, I'm glad you brought it up.
I maybe
because I get where you're going.
Consider adopting our regulations that incentivize ridgeline protection.
Yeah. I'm going to put Golden Triangle here, so it'll make you think on it. Okay.
Yeah, we did a ridgeline, initial ridgeline kind of mapping for the 2013 plan, so we can look at that, at the next meeting and continue.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it may be that, and Jim noted as he was reviewing this list and we were going back and forth and compiling it, that this idea has been around for a long time, and it obviously hasn't gotten any traction as of yet. So we either need to just let it go and not include it, or if we are going to recommend it, we should really be serious about it. And maybe that requires us to provide some specifics about what areas it would and would not cover to ensure that it would not be applied to areas such as the Golden Triangle, where you prefer to see that being used for economic development.
Yeah. And I mean, I still think respecting people's property rights is important too. I don't want to just dictate, hey, you can't do this anymore. Like I said, I think the grants and things that say, hey, we'd like to buy your property or something like that to protect it, I think would be a much better route.
Yeah. I'm just going to say one thing, because I remember a long time ago, and Jim, maybe you remember this, but they were talking about preserving the farms and the farmlands as open space. And I think it was Dennis Kearns who came up with the idea that people with large swatches of farmland or private property that were being pressured to sell because of tax burdens or whatever, that there would be some kind of caveat or an understanding that they would seek the town first to be the purchaser as opposed to going to the open market. And I don't know if that idea ever went anywhere, but it was a way of, and I don't know if they got like a little bit of a tax relief while they still maintained the property before the town would be given an option to buy it. I don't know if, like I said, it ever got any traction, but I do remember a discussion. I do remember it was Dennis Kearns because he was very active with protecting.
I think that first of all, most of the farms get tax breaks under public
PA 490.
Yeah.
And we remember we had that map of the PA 490 properties.
Yes.
So again, we can maybe pull that up next time and remind everybody what that looks like. But I think that, you know, part of it gets to, there's a recommendation somewhere about kind of having a point person dealing with open space and not only the commissions, but, you know, point staff person. And we have, you know, I think we've identified strategic properties that we're interested in acquiring, and we try to maintain some kind of a dialogue with the property owners between the town and the land trust and such to try to get into that position where, you know, they'll consider selling to the town first. And I think Bukowski property acquisition is a good example of how that worked well. So I think we just have to keep on doing that. And we'll have to look at our language, Francisco, where, you know, maybe if we have a point person for acquisition of open space, we should say farms and open space. I can't remember exactly what we said. Look at that.
All right. Okay.
I think just to comment, I mean, another general comment, I think that, you know, as you say, I think if you look at these actions and if you don't believe in them, if, you know, we got plenty to do. So if these are things that, you know, are not priorities or, you know, or we don't really believe in them as good, you know, direction for the town, then let's drop them and concentrate on the things that we really want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is I was looking at, I don't know if you got to this one yet, but looking at some things like you know, reviewing, where was it? Funding strategies and things for hiring more people for public ground staff and stuff like that. When I look at a lot of these strategies, even going forward, I wonder about what the costs, I mean, not even environmental, but I just wonder what the additional costs that we could be looking at as far as the town. I mean, people scream and shout over their property taxes going up $100. So when I see things like, you know, I'm sure we can wiggle it for hiring more staff or groundskeeping for forests and stuff like that. But then there was also one for like, you know, on-site stormwater management systems and existing and new developments. I mean, that sounds like a whole job to have somebody who has to drive around and inspect, you know, stormwater management systems. I'm just trying to be realistic as to what the funding that we have available for a lot of these things are. And I don't see the point of an action or regulation if you can't enforce it or fund it.
That was on the both are in the middle. One's in the middle of page 2, the other's in the middle of page 3.
Yeah.
That's it's like the middle lines.
Is it the last bullet point on page 2?
The one for requiring inspections and reporting on the condition of on-site stormwater management. I can see a new. I don't know about existing.
Where are you?
I think
on page 3.
You're on page 3.
I think what we're looking
Right here.
If I could jump in, I think what it is that the site plan design requires stormwater management systems.
Yeah.
And they have to have in certain condition, you know, situations, special filters and things. If they're not maintaining them and reporting them or otherwise getting inspected, then what's the point of putting in the system in the first place if it's not properly being monitored for
do we monitor
for
them
maintenance.
currently?
I think I don't want to speak for the public works staff. We generally, my understanding is, you know, if there's an issue or a complaint, and I think in some of the wetlands approvals, they may have to have an annual reporting type of thing, and that's another way you can work. So maintenance can be more proactive from the developer side, where they have or the property owner needs to tell the town. Now, you need a staff person to make sure they're telling you, because there's reporting that doesn't get done because nobody knows it has to be done. It falls through the cracks, but those are, I would say that's the big reason for it, is to make sure that the system that was specifically designed by an engineer in order to get site plan approval and get through wetlands and get through stormwater management actually is functioning properly and continues not to harm our resources.
And as I think Maureen stated, this would, and we could clarify this with the language, but this would require the developer or association or property owner to inspect and report, right? That would be a condition of the development.
Okay.
As opposed to a town.
Yeah, it isn't necessarily something the town would have to go out and do.
It leaves that wiggle room if you know, get an environmental enforcement agent, then you have you're kind of mixing up the way the town works over time as well.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know.
Good point.
Okay.
We'll look closer at this, yeah.
So let me quickly go through these strategies. We have 4 on this page as well, strategies 4 through 7 that we're carrying over from the previous page with continue the oversight and protection of environmentally sensitive areas, which started on the previous slide. Next would be actively work towards protecting and improving water quality of the Mattabesset River and other waterways in town. Improve stewardship of forests and tree canopy on town-owned open space and right-of-ways, and continue to promote sustainable stormwater management and floodplain management to be resilient and adaptable to a changing climate.
So on that one, under actions, I see sustainable green infrastructure improvements should be prioritized. I've always kind of gotten me to understand that green infrastructure isn't always the most sustainable or the best. I think maybe we should exchange. I mean, I know there's this whole green movement, but I think it's, I'd say maybe strike the green infrastructure and just do sustainable or, you know, best methods or something like that we put in there instead.
What do they call it? Best practices?
Yeah. So replace with best practices or something like that.
Yeah. Whatever's the best technology at the time, because I know everyone's kind of like going green, but that's the right thing.
Right.
For everything.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to avoid jargon if we can. So
yeah, because in a few years that may all be.
okay.
All right. Good catch.
All right, and our last 2 strategies, and I'm calling attention to some items I'd like to make sure we discuss with the red boxes there. The first strategy, expand and improve the town's trail system to better connect open space properties and connect Berlin to trail networks in surrounding towns and improve access to and promotion of trails, the trail system. That probably should be 2 sentences, but. And a couple of the ideas surrounding that include making a trail connection from Timberland to Reservoir Road on the newly acquired Reservoir Road parcel, and working with the New Britain Water Department to relocate a portion of the former Wigwam Road right-of-way to connect Reservoir Road to the Ragged Mountain Preserve, and then providing a trail after the right-of-way is relocated.
Yeah, and I think just these highlighted items, I just wanted to highlight some of the new items that, you know, have evolved since the last plan and become more specific. So go ahead.
And along those lines, then the next box down is improve the connection between Pistol Creek and the through trails at Lamentation Mountain. Relocate the Metacomet Trail off private property into the Blue Hills Conservation Area in the vicinity of Summit Wood Drive. And finally, work with New Britain and Meriden Water Departments to provide more public access to lands they own in Berlin as feasible.
And just to comment briefly on all of those, one is for Pistol Creek, Maureen and I had a meeting with Middletown and Meriden recently, and we've been having a dialogue. We'll show you some mapping probably at the next meeting, but I think everybody knows that the town, you know, is in the process of trying to acquire the balance of the Pistol Creek golf course. Middletown also bought the rest of the former golf course in Middletown, and we've identified that Middletown also owns existing open space property that, you know, with a short road walk from Pistol Creek, we hope we'll be able to connect into the trail system at Lamentation Mountain, including the property recently bought by the Berlin Land Trust. So we think there's a lot of good short-term potential there. That's pretty exciting. And then New Connecticut Forest and Park, you know, one of the people on Summit Wood, and we've talked about this whole thing before, but there's a section of the trail that kind of runs through the front yards of some people on Summit Wood. And I know one of the property owners had requested CFPA to move it off. And they're presently working on a rerouting plan. So I think they're gonna get that done. And then just the last one being kind of thinking about all the water department properties. I don't know if more, you know, public access is feasible or not, but we should be talking to them about that because they have a lot of property in Berlin.
Wow.
They do.
And one thing I really liked on one of those is I think the idea, you don't have it highlighted there, but I think the idea of an app is a very good idea. Everybody's on their smartphones, get an app that shows trails or where to park and everything like that.
Right.
So clogging up West Lane.
I'm right there.
Yeah,
I think that's a home run.
I think we had it set up with Avanta, so I can check and see whether that still works.
Oh, you have that already?
We did, yeah. I haven't used it lately, but I will check.
Okay.
The great thing about that is it works when you don't have cell service too.
What, 5G didn't help us?
I don't know, but you know, I in the old days we used to hear about everybody getting lost up at Ragged Mountain and the fire department having to go and save them. So if they can have it on their phone and they find their own way back, that would help.
Okay.
That'd be good.
All right, and the final strategy on this page is to provide site improvements to open space properties to ensure proper stewardship of those properties and improve access by the public. And the specific strategies or action items comprising that strategy include advanced planning for the shared open space water department use for the Woodlawn parcel, improve parking for the Ragged Mountain Preserve at West Lane, improve parking at Park Drive, that is an access point to Meriden's Hubbard Park and to trails. Work with Middletown to improve the Pistol Creek properties as a two-town open space and recreation area, and Jim just talked about that one. And then the last item on the page there is to identify critical improvements and maintenance needed at town-owned open space properties and produce a summary and list of needs.
Yeah, again, some of these things are new, and I think Diane mentioned the Park Drive issue, so we wanted to get it on the radar. I know she had some ideas about how to do that. I'm not sure what they are, but let's figure that out.
Yeah.
And as we said, now that Pistol Creek is all is all going to be owned hopefully by Berlin and Middletown. We were already talking to them. There's a grant opportunity from the state that's coming up shortly that we're going to try to submit a 2-town application. So we're optimistic that we can really make that a even more special place.
Jim, this may not be the format for it, but I'm going to throw it out there lest I forget.
Yes.
Pistol Creek has that beautiful clubhouse.
Yes.
And I know that I've gone over and I was walking Pistol Creek and I went looking inside, and it's fairly recently painted, I believe. The floors have been refinished. It used to be the clubhouse bar restaurant for the golf course. And I would love to have that. I would love to see what it would take to turn that into a town events facility. In other words, if a citizen of Berlin wants to rent that facility for a birthday party, anniversary, or wedding, or whatever, they would pay a fee. They would bring in their own caterer. We would have an area that was set up for bars. They could bring in their own booze, their own bartender if they wanted, and rent the facility for a day. They can either pay a cleaning fee at the end of the day, or they can clean the facility themselves before locking it up at night. I know they do something like this with the pavilion down in Old Saybrook. We had to rent it once for a wedding, and my sister we had to go through my sister because she's a citizen down there. But they have tremendous success with it. It's always, you got to go like a year in advance now to get that facility secured. So I really think it would be a home run for Pistol Creek. If we could, and for the town, if we could somehow utilize that, the patio alone. I mean, there's picnic tables out there, the patio's covered. There's plenty of parking. And I think would draw a lot of traffic there.
And I think that's a sentiment that's shared through a large part of our community.
Yeah.
People would like to see that building put back in use.
Yeah, I would love to have actually a restaurant in there, but you know, I hear that it's tough to get people to want to invest in a restaurant. But I'll put that out there because I don't think it should get lost, especially since now looks like we're gonna secure that whole thing for the town. And you know, Middletown, I'm sure will want to take advantage of it too.
Well, just to keep it on the radar, we could add, you know, including, you know, better utilization of the former clubhouse.
Yeah.
Then figure it out from there, because it would obviously be a study to figure out the economics of what needed to be done to the building, et cetera, et cetera. But
yeah,
let's put it on the radar.
Heard that dog park is a success. And
it is. If you go by because there's more people walking there now. And I mean, the dog park, yeah, it's added the attraction to it. And I know we're drawing people from outside, but there are more and more cars there. And there are more and more people walking, more seniors walking. And it's a real gem. And I think, I keep thinking to myself, geez, it would be great if I could just go in and meet some friends and have a brewski, sit on the back patio and just listen to the birds and just watch the people walking by. I mean, I really wish it was a restaurant, but I think before the building falls down on itself, I think it would be wise for us to try to save it. I've walked the exterior, I've looked need some wood sealer on it and stuff. But
well, the town owns a restaurant at Timberland, so maybe that's not something out of the question, unless I don't know if that's just a money pit or if it's a profit.
No, but that's
maybe a restaurant isn't out of the question. Town of Berlin already owns one.
Well, I know, yeah, and that's why I said maybe even just make it like just a rental. We could manage it that way, but you know, and that would help fund it because people would have to pay a fee for renting it. But anyway, all right. So
okay, I've noted that.
I just don't want to lose it.
Sure. Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
All right.
All right. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about housing. And we've identified. Yeah. Go ahead. We've identified 6 strategies. The first one, which really points to a lot of other recommendations, is basically implementing the recommendations of the 2022 Affordable Housing Plan. We have a plan adopted months ago now that has a myriad of recommendations that are very specific as to how the town can go about expanding the supply of affordable housing in Berlin. And we don't need to reinvent that plan. We just need to direct attention to it. And so that's the point of that strategy. However, because that plan is really tailored specifically towards affordable housing, it comes a little short of addressing all of the housing need in Berlin. So we have added additional strategies here. And those strategies include maintain and increase the supply of housing designed for and occupied by seniors, administer, educate, and support affordable housing initiatives, promote affordable home ownership opportunities, revise zoning as recommended by the Affordable Housing Plan to support development of affordable housing, support the diversification of the town's housing stock without adversely impacting single-family neighborhoods by providing adequate zoning controls. And finally, support the diverse, I said that already, that's continues over to here, additional couple of action items. Yeah, go ahead. I just threw a lot at you.
Yeah, I was looking at one of the action items with providing shared living areas for multiple generations of family in appropriate residential districts. And I think we already have something on the books, which I think when we were looking at opting out of the accessory dwellings, we looked at something that I think was similar to this, as far as that we do allow for like in-law apartments and stuff like that. So I don't know if that action is necessarily needed.
Yeah, it may be, and you're exactly right. This is very similar to accessory dwelling units. Multi-generation housing is kind of a new concept or a new trend, I should say, in housing developments, in that the housing from the very beginning is designed and built with some form of an accessory unit, and it's really intended for those multiple generations, often, a parent, grandparent, whatever it may be. And then also being able to support a young adult who has some independence. The slight difference is that accessory dwelling units typically tend to be retrofitted into place. They're built in afterwards into a basement or over garage, whatever it may be. And so this concept would ensure that it can be built from the beginning into a single family home, which maybe your regulations are with ADUs are sufficient as they are, but it's something that we wanted to take a look at.
So just as an overview, our regulations currently require that the structure that's being converted is, I want to say 5 years old. I could have the number of years old.
Right.
But it has to be a conversion of existing space. We allow 150 square foot addition. Say you need to add a bathroom to make it accessible or something, but you do meaning handicap accessible. But ours are not for new construction. They are retrofitted.
Okay, and then the other one that I was a little concerned was pursue state and federal funds for affordable housing initiatives with a focus on programs that provide support to targeted income levels. I mean, I know we already do that with a lot of, they have to go through the loans with the state, but I am hesitant to pursue state and federal funds because I feel like those federal funds always come with coattails. And I think the town of Berlin is doing a very good job with their affordability as it is, considering we're less than 10%. And I would rather keep the state out of it.
I understand that. Just dovetailing on that, I'm looking at down the next actions down below. Under revised zoning for the affordable housing plan to support the development. We talk about the number 3 and 4. We talk about revised Kensington Village core regulations to allow increased density. Consider restricting area across the train station to Farmington Avenue core area 1. That bullet point and the one below it, revise the zoning regulations to allow private development on housing for the elderly on town-owned property. Town-owned property, I guess you'd have to define that for me. Are we talking about Pistol Creek? I mean, because that would be a town-owned property.
I guess it'd be like Marjorie Moore.
Well, it could be like Marjorie Moore. How do you define the town-owned property?
Yeah,
you want to take this, Jim, or do you want me to? You take it.
I could take.
I'm concerned about those two right there.
Yeah, these are both included in the affordable housing plan, actually. But the let's start with the second one. Right now, the housing authority is the only entity that can develop senior housing in residential, single-family residential zones. And Marjorie Moore is a good example of a property that, you know, if for some reason the housing authority isn't able to put that together, would we want to be able to consider a private developer doing the same kind of project, right? And the recommendation of the affordable housing plan is more broad, you know, like, but when we thought about it, we thought that when you think about where we have the existing housing authority properties, which are the ones in single family residential zones, they're all former town properties. So they kind of go through a 2-level review process to make sure that the location is suitable for this kind of development. So, you know, maybe it would be more difficult to develop a regulation that would allow, you know, senior housing. You know, is it like at the end of a subdivision, if you have 5 acres, you put it there? You know, this is more, I think, would be more restrictive or more, you know, it would have to go through a more extensive process to vet the site to make sure it's, you know, it would be allowed. So it's a more limited recommendation. And so it's possible that the town, you know, if it doesn't own something, could buy a parcel that they think is suitable and go through this process and sell it to a developer to, you know, to develop that kind of property. But it would have to go through that 2-stage. And, you know, really the notable example right now is the Knights of Columbus property.
Yeah. So when you're talking about this, Jim, you're talking about the town buying the property and selling it to the developer to develop the senior housing, or would the town continue to own the property?
So
I mean,
if I can cut in a little bit just to simplify it a little, I want to kind of make it a little more broad summary. We have a regulation right now for senior housing.
Yeah.
It specifies that, and I don't have it in front of me, but it specifies that the partnership is with the housing authority and only the housing authority.
Yeah.
So the thought putting this in is to broaden that.
Yeah.
So it's not only the housing authority that the town is tied to with regard to developing the senior housing on town-owned property, but instead opens it up to other developers besides the housing authority. But was that correct? Did you hear me? Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
I turned away. I was like, uh-oh, now you can't hear me. I turned away.
But would the private, I don't want to go into the weeds because I know that you have a lot, but just, I'm going to try to figure this out. So would the property still be owned by the town? Is the town paying the developer to develop the property? Or is the town going to actually just relinquish the town property to the developer and let them run with it as long as they have the guarantee that the developer is going to build senior housing and maintain it?
Yeah, I think in short, Yeah, in short, the latter, that I'm envisioning, we'd have to structure this, but it's like we have an agreement now with the housing authority, and it specifies that, we're going to sell them the property in that case for $1, and they're going to develop affordable senior housing for very low income seniors. And it would be the same kind of thing that, it's subject to them getting the financing, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're not going to transfer title until all the ducks are in a row,
Okay, all right. Thank you for clearing that up. And the only other thing is going back to that village core too. And I spoke with Maureen briefly about this. I've been hearing a lot from folks that are in town, and they are concerned at the apartment growth that's happening in Berlin. They've moved to Berlin because they want to be part of the, they want to be out in the country. They want to have the walking trails, but they've left the Newingtons, they've left the Weathersfields, they've left all these other places and found us. And one of the things that's terrifying them is that, why are we having so many apartments? Why are you allowing this to happen? I mean, I'm sitting there, okay, well, I guess I own it. But, and I think it's a concern of them is that we're just going to grow to a point where we're just putting 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag.
Yeah, I mean, that also caught my attention, that part. I guess what caught my attention was the increased density. I'm not really 100% opposed to redistricting the area across from the train station, because I feel like we did that, we did it for the train station, but here we're allowing all this development on one side of the road, but not on the other side where the firehouse and everything is. And it just doesn't seem to fit. So I wouldn't mind like the flow continuing on, so it's a little more balanced. I also think that'd be fair to all the property owners over there who are sitting with their vacant buildings looking at this brand new development saying, well, why can't I do that? But the density does catch my attention, especially like you're saying with the residentials. I don't know if I want to increase the density. Like you said, a lot of people are like, yeah, it's nice to see the growth, but at the same time, they're like, Farmington Avenue it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. And I think everybody was really looking forward to seeing, more businesses on Farmington Avenue rather than more apartments. I think, that's why if there is something to be done with density, maybe it's for, obviously we've seen Amazon come in and really reshape the retail environment, but it does seem like those smaller, like strip mall type businesses are doing better. I mean, we got the card places, barbershops, coffee shops. Maybe we focus more instead of on housing density, but excuse me, but like the retail, medical, services.
Yeah, I guess we just really have to be careful about increasing the density.
Yeah, just to comment a couple things. I mean, I think that first of all, the 2013 POCD really recommended increased residential density at the train station area in these areas that we're talking about. And if you really look at it, most of the new projects, the multifamily projects, are really out on the Turnpike and Deming Road. So I guess, first of all, I would say, we should really, the two recommendations above that would be the ones I would focus on if you have the density concerns at this point. And I would say that, keep in mind that I believe that the existing, your existing residential density for a core area 1, where Steel Center is 6 units per acre. Your existing residential density for core area 2 across the street, I think, is 6, 26 and 6. So we're talking about going, to it could be 8 or 12 or something like that. We're not talking about going to 26. So, that's what we have in mind. Maybe that hopefully allays some of your concerns. And we are actually, we just are in the process of applying for a grant to help Newport build 10 more units on Newport Center behind, and that would require, some kind of a zoning modification, although, not much density increase, but some, to allow those units, which would be mixed income. So I would advocate for, again, we can talk about the details of it, but I think, this kind of more of a staging of densities in that area and concentrating in that area. And, I think the big question to me is, we've had this spurt of housing approved and proposed on the Berlin Turnpike with, certainly on the Berlin Turnpike itself, we're talking about what, 300 units right now, either approved or in process, right, or under application. And that's a lot for us. And we've had also the ones on Deming Road. So, and the BTD zone is tailored to specific sites. And the site study that was done when it was established, most of those sites have been developed, but not all of them. So, and we've also talked about whether we should strengthen the commercial, requirements in the BTD zone to have more of a mixed use project, that's not a residential. So there's, I think my opinion would be, more, modify the BTD zone in ways that maybe consider putting a pause on that if that's our concern in terms of multifamily. And also the one above it, where we're looking at the PSA districts, which we have 3, Ferndale, Webster Square and down on Mill Street. That could potentially, if we went in that direction, that would potentially create a lot of multifamily units. So if you have those concerns, you might want to, we could still say consider, but you might want to, put that on the back burner, or, again, prioritize. So those are my thoughts on that. Sorry.
I think I want to just add to the core, the Kensington Village and the core areas. They were set up as core area 1, core area 2, as kind of the step down. Mm-hmm. I would say that was my reading of it, and I had a lot of time reading it as I was trying to figure out all the modifications that were made to it during its approval process, which was pretty lengthy. And there were a lot of modifications to that over a number of public hearings. And so core 2 was kind of a step down, where now it's roughly the density of an R7 zone, right? Is that the calculation we did, Jim?
Yeah.
6 is, or less than an R7 zone has. Right. So the core areas to purpose, or I guess the vision at the time that the Kensington Village was adopted had it as a step down, and then you have the village redevelopment area. So, that's then or the outskirts, I guess, or across the tracks. But, and that I think is one of the reasons we thought to keep it in here, and to be working towards a modification, is because, okay, the first target was core 1. What happens? What do we do? How do we get development there? Or how does Commission of the town get development there? And then move on to core 2, and why, we thought keeping it there made sense. Okay. But at the pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a hard one because, like, you're kind of looking at everything else. You've yet to see core 1 developed yet. I mean, you've got one building up that's still being moved into. I guess the residents have moved in, but there's still 4 or 5 buildings that have been yet to be completed. So we're talking about expanding something that we haven't even seen how it's going to really impact the town. And then I had glossed over it before, but considering the amount of the PSA districts, these mixed uses for affordable, I mean, they're really just, like you were saying earlier, they just seem to be consuming the town. And I think people like going to plazas and not seeing apartments on top of the buildings. I mean, I know we're trying to work goals to get to that 10%, but at what cost?
Just so I can understand, when you say mixed uses are consuming the town, what areas?
I'm considering the village 1, the core 1, where we have, or like,
yeah,
assuming that's what happened in the PSA, not just straight up apartment not straight apartment buildings because there's already buildings there, but when we look at like the first buildings on the first like 2 or 3 of the buildings in the core village 1, it's businesses on the bottom or restaurant on the bottom with 2 or 3 floors of apartments on top. That's what I consider mixed use.
Right, and so the issue in your mind that's creating, or the problem that's creating is,
we've yet, like I said, we've yet to see it completed and don't know what the effects are going to be. But I think if we just say it sounds like a good idea and then prove it all through Webster Square or Fernville Square, or one, all up and down Farmington Avenue, because once we set the precedent of opening the floodgates, next thing you know, they'll probably be like going down Main Street in Southington, which I mean maybe not as a bad thing, but
well, I mean,
I would like to see
that would require.
I would like to see the caution.
Yeah, I mean that would require that you change the zoning for all those areas to allow that sort of thing. And then what? So what? I'm realizing that this stuff is just starting to be built in Kensington.
Yeah.
What's the concern about what would happen? What's the concern about the adverse effects?
I guess you can just think, like, even right now, as you try and drive up now Farmington Avenue, there are points of the day where I just try and avoid it. So
is it traffic? Is that the big concern?
I mean, that's a big concern. I just don't know what's going to fit into the community because I haven't had a chance to witness it. Just like we've seen with the BTD zone, that's also like a concern of mine, is that Orsini's still doing his project, Diageo is still doing his project. We have other people that apply, but nothing's been completed. We haven't seen how it's affected our resources as far as public safety, fire, traffic, and I just like to proceed with caution before we just, like I said, open the floodgates to this. And then 10 years from now, we said, oh, maybe we shouldn't have just said.
Whatever happened to our cute little town?
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people talk to me about, Brian, is that they say to me, hey, I see you're building more apartments. I'm building them. I see you're building more apartments. How many more do you have to build? They have this sort of sense that they're losing their identity as a town. They're losing themselves. They're being protective of what they know and what they came here for, or their families have lived here for generations, and they see the sort of an encroachment of folks coming in. And I know it's probably absurd that they have that protectionism, but they're afraid that they're going to lose their identity. And as one person said, geez, in 10 years, we're going to look just like Newington. What's the difference? Why do we even call ourselves Brougham? I would just call ourselves Newington. I was like, whoa, because that's their fear.
I mean, the buildings look nice. I love hearing things like the Hop House are going, and I like what they do at Newport Center, filling up those abandoned retail spaces. It looks nice. Just like I said, it would be nice to proceed with caution at this point in time and see how things play out.
We're just we're sharing with you things that are now sort of like the election. Nobody pays attention 2 weeks before. All of a sudden they notice everything. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like all of a sudden they drive down Farmington Avenue and they see a building. It's like, what the hell? And it's like then the phone calls start at the house, and people are saying, why'd you let it? It's like, wait a minute, we had public hearings, we had this, and they don't understand the process. All they know is that the reality is they're looking at it. So that's what I want.
Just one thing to keep in mind too. I know, we deal closely with Newport that's developing this stuff in the Newport Center. And obviously they're being successful at bringing in new commercial tenants into the area that, really wasn't the case, particularly like Newport Center that was vacant for so long on the first floor. And what they tell us really the mixed use, the residential component was really a driver for them to make these projects successful. So just keep that in mind too.
All right. Well, yeah, and like I said, it's, you know, we're striving for the perfect partnership. We're looking for the perfect blend. And we're hesitant, and I think it's great we're hesitant, because through our hesitancy, we can see what mistakes other towns have made and maybe save ourselves from the same demise. But so, you know, it's the good with the bad, but we're trying, and I think it's just a sense of control.
And I think, credit to our commission too, over the last 5 years with all these new regulations that expanded people's, you know, rights, what they could do with these properties. I think we've really shown a willingness to work with developers like Newport and the other developers in like the BTD zone, and show that, you know, we are an open-minded commission, and we want to see successful, prosperous projects. And like I said, I appreciate what they're doing. Just, I don't want to just be too gung ho, and you know,
and fall on our face.
Yeah.
But this way, at least we've opened this discussion out about the core 1 and 2, which will give me a chance to look at it and to see what it impacts, and then to revisit the regulations to see, you know, how the housing density would be affected.
I wish that we were addressing this with the completed project, so I could say that work was fantastic, let's keep it going, or, you know, maybe the opposite. Let's turn it down. It's hard to say right now, I guess, is where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not making your job easy. I apologize for
that.
No, I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about these issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an important issue to talk about, so I'm glad we had a chance.
Yeah. I'm glad that we broke the ice and finally did it. Of course, we probably should have done it months ago, but hey, what are you going to do?
All right, you ready to talk about economic development?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All I have is yeses on my page. So.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
You overachiever. Yeah, you can see it was a rainy day.
So we've got eight strategies. Let me walk you through those. Here are the first 4. It starts with foster an environment that is supportive of economic development, provides opportunities for the growth and development of small and large businesses in the town. Followed by develop a campaign and communications that promotes Berlin as a place that is friendly to business. Next, support the development of industrial parks that serve small and emerging businesses, and review and update as appropriate the town's mixed-use commercial and industrial zone regulations to ensure that the regulations provide sufficient flexibility to allow development that responds to current and future market conditions. And you'll notice we called out, we're calling attention to the actions that are recommended for industrial parks. And those include identify sites that would be suitable for the development of small lot industrial parks, and revise the zoning regulations to allow for the development of small lot industrial parks at suitable sites, allowing as small as 1 acre lots for a unified site plan.
I have a question.
Sure.
Because industrial parks years back were everywhere. Everybody was building industrial parks. Is there still a growing flavor for them?
Yes, the issue is mostly easy. A lot of the easy land has already been built on. You know, the land that's close to highways and interchanges, and that's flat and dry. And a lot of those prime properties have been, and that's zoned for industrial, have been consumed. And it's the more challenging land that's left in a lot of towns, which is why you know, you don't see as much development in this area, but there's still a demand. And right now, a lot of the demand is being driven by warehousing and distribution facilities. However, we are calling attention to the fact that there's really a need for small sites that can accommodate contractor yards and small industrial enterprises. And that's exactly what we're trying to address here.
Okay.
Yeah, and the commission, approved the site on Christian Lane for and expanded the uses in that zone for contractors, the small contractor buildings. And then obviously there were some developments on Four Rod Road, including, the more recent one that were more condo type developments. And, Chris and I have looked at some various sites in town and done concept plans for small lot subdivisions. And, it's just a slice of the market. But, the thought is that like a condo development, again, a condo industrial, people might have concerns about just it being a common interest property in terms of environmental issues and things of that nature, where if people can own their own site, then they don't, they don't have those issues. And so if we can make tweaks, which we think we can, to the zoning regulations where, again, the subdivision of larger lots into as part of a master plan and that sort of thing, that maybe there's opportunities to do some more of that in Berlin.
Okay, so I guess I spoke too soon. Revise the BTD zoning regulations require at least 20% commercial development, and that commercial and residential development be done on a pro rata basis if the project is phased. What is the required commercial right now in the BTD zones?
There isn't a percent.
There isn't a percent?
No, that's one of the things that was
on the turnpike.
Right. We can't be. If it's 300, it'd be two. How many feet back? I'm sorry because I don't have my regs. I can't pop them up on the screen, or you guys will disappear.
I think it was 300 because I was pretty.
Yeah, it's the residential has to be not the fronting.
Yeah.
Area and enough room for development. I'm thinking 300 is about right.
I was pretty picky about that.
And then the development behind, but we don't have a percent. And we have had a few preliminary conversations about that, about whether there should be some sort of ratio.
Okay.
I'm not going to say necessarily a percent, but something, and how that would work out. We're grappling with.
Yeah. And all right, and then I'll leave out. We already talked about Massachusetts. So
okay.
But what is the SP? That's the SPDD zone where that big yellow building that used to be that candy place on the Berlin Turnpike was.
Yes.
Yeah, the original Munson. Yeah, and where the region road.
And then the overlay. It's
Middletown Road.
It's basically the area around that interchange into Middletown Road, and then the overlays and across the street, across the Berlin Turnpike on the west side of the Berlin Turnpike.
So I have
that's where
I have two things, I guess. One thing that would be is that we realized about reducing setbacks, how that went for us recently. Considering that those zones are abutted by residential, I think we might want to keep the setbacks what they are. And then.
Well, yeah, because you have the Worthington Ridge there.
Yes.
And Middletown Road. So like where that old gas station is, the old one.
And after recent experience with setbacks being too close to residential line, then and then why would we want to eliminate the SPDD zone overlay? Because I'm just guessing if we eliminate it, what's going to be replaced with?
So the SPDD zone itself is a zone where the candy factory is, and that side of the street. And it is a very limiting zone as far as what can go there. We did have the recent text amendments that allowed personal service to be added. And I think it's something else as well, because it's a very limiting zone. And I think everything's a special permit use, right, Jim? In the SPDD, despite having some existing buildings that exist, all the uses are still special permit uses. Across the street with the SPDD overlay and the SPDD2 zone, which is also an overlay, you have your underlying zone, but they're still pretty restrictive. And I think whether the elimination of that or the studying of that is it kind of goes along with what you do with the SPDD. So if you start with SPDD as to whether that gets modified and or eliminated or changed or massaged, whatever, then it follows suit to have the SPDD overlays be tied into whatever you do. So I think that's where that comes from, as well as the fact that that whole area has been extremely reluctant to any changes.
And I'm very open
because of the restrictiveness and the understanding of the zone. What?
So I think dealing with that zone is definitely a good idea. I just want to,
So how it's dealt with, and then Jim may have more to say on it, because he
want to specifically say eliminate.
Yeah, just to say quickly, the SBDD2 was kind of put in place because, you know, the idea is the SPDD would be hopefully some kind of a major project that would, you know, have a high quality development, which the SPDD zone requires. And the overlay just was, I think, primarily put there to make sure that whatever happened across the street, even at a smaller scale, was of high quality. But since that time, you know, we've set up, you know, extensive landscape requirements for the properties on the Berlin Turnpike, plus design review requirements. So I think the SBDD, you know, 2 really isn't needed anymore. We already have the protections there. And, you know, just to simplify the zoning just a tad. And then the overlay is kind of on Middletown Road, where some adjacent properties, you know, would make it easier to, you know, incorporate them into a development on the SBDD. But most of those properties are separated by wetlands, or they're more residential. And so that's probably not going to happen anyway. So, you know, if we eliminate it does, you know, you still have to go through a process, even with the overlay, to combine them with the SBD. So I think, you know, it probably doesn't, you know, we've had it for quite a while, nothing's happened, and I don't think we need the overlay. So that's kind of my take on that.
No, I agree with you. I'm much in favor of, you know, making those properties in those areas a lot more workable. I just, I was just curious as to what it meant. A little bit confusing.
Yeah.
It was a learning curve when I started. What is this zone?
Yeah.
And trying to wrap.
Yeah.
Something needs to happen there. Yeah. So
I need to sit with my regulation in front of me and go. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, you folks have kind of jumped ahead a little bit on me, but that's okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We talked about 4 of the strategies. Continuing on with the 5th is to focus economic development efforts on Farmington Avenue and the Berlin Turnpike, followed by facilitate the cleanup, improvement, reuse of vacant, aging, and or contaminated commercial and industrial properties, and continue to invest in Kensington Village and facilitate the redevelopment of properties and development of mixed-use commercial and residential projects. And so we talked about a lot of the items under the zoning strategy under Farmington Ave and Berlin Turnpike. Some of the specific actions recommended include review the parking requirements for potential reductions to those requirements. That could potentially free up some space for infill development in existing parking lots, and consider conducting corridor studies or area plans. And these are very often funded through the COG, through CROG in your case, for the Berlin Turnpike and Farmington Avenue to help align economic development priorities with infrastructure needs. Okay. And then we talked about Kensington Village already, and we see housing as actually kind of part of the economic development plan for the village, because those residences help to make the first floor retail financially viable to build out, and by virtue of the fact you have people living in the area, you provide a customer base for those businesses as well. And I'm understanding your concerns.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And so we continue on with additional actions recommended for Kensington Village, including continuing streetscape improvements as grant funds become available. And there's a lot of money floating around right now for infrastructure work. and concentrate those streetscape improvements on Farmington Avenue between New Britain Road and Steel Boulevard. And our final strategy is to continue to promote Berlin's TED sites, and those are targeted economic development sites, by developing informational and promotional materials specific to each site. And the town does a pretty good job of promoting these already, just by virtue of the fact that you have this branding for these sites and you map them and inventory them. You're halfway there, but probably a little bit more you could do to better promote those sites for development.
In terms of meeting management, it's about 10 of 9. So what's our deadline tonight, and then decide what we want to do.
We're actually we're gonna have to pick up the pace substantially.
Well,
I would like to get through these just and I guess we don't need to go through them in detail, just enough to orient you so that you can do your homework here. And then, and we don't, it's not imperative that we get through our zoning review for affordable housing, but I do want to let you know what we've done, and we can come back to it. All right, so let me keep going, but I will pick up the pace. So that concludes economic development. Next is transportation, and this fits all on one page, so we should be able to get through it quick. We have 6 strategies. It starts with improving traffic operations in the town. That can be done with, a lot of that can be improved with improving technology. Strategically improve transportation infrastructure across the town. Improve bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. Accommodate emerging transportation modes and technologies like electric vehicles and scooters and bike share and that sort of thing. Continue to address safety issues across Berlin's transportation system. And finally, improve access to Connecticut transit bus routes. All right, some of our call outs here include adopting a complete streets policy. And that would be basically a policy that says, the town needs to be more proactive in expanding its sidewalk network, providing bike facilities, improving safety, improving access to transit, that sort of thing. Develop a bicycle plan, expand and improve the town's sidewalk network, and we call out specific corridors. And then finally, expanding the trail and greenway connections across the town and connecting to regional trails that are in surrounding towns. Comments or questions?
Comments. I think we need to make a note to sell bike racks would be needed in town.
Yep.
And the other thing is,
we got that right here. Provide bicycle racks at locations across town, such as train stations, schools, and parks.
Oh, okay. All right. I missed it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The other one that I had was, we talked about continuing streetscape improvements through grants and funds. I don't know if there's any way to get grants or funds to bury the utilities on Farmington Avenue.
Okay, yeah, I can tell you it's very, very costly, but if you have enough money, it's possible to do that while you're doing streetscape work.
Yeah, because that would be huge if we could get all the utilities underground and get rid of those leaning telephone poles.
Yeah.
All right, that's all right. That's the only comment I have, because I know you're pressed for time.
Just like gentleman comments written back. That's all.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. Okay.
Written comments are good. Okay, you don't mind.
Yeah,
Perfect. Okay. Actually, appreciate them.
Next up.
Sure. Okay.
Town facilities and services.
Okay, go.
We've got a total of 9 strategies. Starts with continue to preserve, enhance, and maintain parks and recreational facilities. And so here we are calling attention to expanding, enhancing trails and parks and improving accessibility at parks, that being handicap accessibility. Next strategy, Continue the process to design and construct improvements to address identified police department space needs, and continue to evaluate facilities to ensure that Berlin's public safety services have the resources to meet the needs of the community.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we could probably start to provide a little more detail here. We just need to have a little more back and forth with those fire and police on to get their input. Next, support sustainability, including energy efficiency and renewable energy sources across all town facilities. And this should be a no-brainer because it saves you money and it's the right thing to do. Continue to protect and maintain the town's drinking water supply and distribution infrastructure. All right. And a very important part of this solution or strategy would be to visit the long going discussion about consolidation of the town's water districts. And multiple studies have been done to suggest that this is the best way to go about things. Strategies 5 through 9 continue to also make investments in the town's wastewater collection infrastructure. And it's the same conversation here, right? About consolidating those districts to better manage, maintain and improve that infrastructure. Proactively work towards obtaining, securing funding through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And there's some other federal funds and funding sources that are becoming available as well as a means of financing and improvements to town facilities and infrastructure. Continue to pursue options for accommodating senior center and community center space needs. We have not figured out what is the action. So what do you have to do? Bring it to referendum? So this is a placeholder because we don't want to ignore this issue. We should probably take some sort of position on it and a plan. We don't want it to be an oversight, appear as an oversight if we're not addressing it at all. That being said, it's not incumbent upon us to figure this out. So I think we just need to figure out how to word it and how to point to this as a need that needs to be addressed.
I think either you do that or maybe find a way about discussing opening up to a YMCA, which I think would be a good alternative to that.
Okay. Next strategy, provide improvements to the town's stormwater infrastructure to reduce risk of flooding and protect water quality. And then finally, and here this one's for you, Joan, encourage the underground installation of electric and communications infrastructure. And this stipulates new developments. It doesn't say Farmington Avenue, but we can maybe expand this. In new developments as a means of protecting infrastructure from storm events and improving the appearance of new developments.
And next up, I'll ask for roundabouts.
Well, that could be part of your traffic operations improvement strategy. So certainly, it's worked quite well on Hebron Avenue in Glastonbury. It's worked very well for them.
Yep. Okay.
All right, good. And finally, cultural resources. We've got a couple slides here. 7 strategies. Strategies 1 through 4 include provide continued support for the promotion and protection of historic resources in Berlin, allow for the reuse of historic properties and ensure the preservation of historic properties when reused for development. And one of the actions we want to call attention to is amend the zoning and subdivision regulations to encourage the preservation and reuse of historically significant structures within proposed developments. Right. So right now, as I understand it, there's really no protection or nothing to incentivize the reuse of historic structure when a property is being redeveloped. Right. Right now, it's just tear it down.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, develop a marketing campaign for Berlin that features and promotes its cultural resources. And this, you could see this is also would be part of potentially an economic development strategy for the town, all part of maybe one promotional campaign for the town. Then next is to provide continued support for the town's farms to ensure their continued operation, including allowing a house on farms of at least 10 acres in the POD zone to encourage small farmers. And we've even talked about maybe 5 acres.
I think 10 would be good because that would be in line with our agricultural regulations.
Yeah, we talked about the idea of maybe modifying those and then using it as part, if it's a 10 acre or more parcel and unified master plan breakdown to 5 acre minimum parcels, as long as it's farmed and have a house, something like that. So that's kind of, we'll talk more about that next time, but we're trying to be creative about how to promote small farms, and especially in the POD zone.
Yep. And finally, the rest of the strategies, the top strategy there carries over from the previous page. We do have an action along those lines though, and that is to engage in dialogue with local farmers to identify additional zoning amendments to encourage the preservation of local farms, including by expanding definitions of farming related uses. So maybe the farmers know something we don't about how the zoning regulations are limiting in terms of farming.
Yeah.
Okay. Next strategy is support the development of micro farming in Berlin. And so here we come back again to the idea of small farms and revising the zoning regulations to allow farming on lots less than 10 acres. And potentially considering a 2-tier definition of farming. So certain types of farming activities allowed on lots less than 10 acres. And then, the much wider range of farming activities on lots 10 acres or more.
Yeah, we did that expanded uses for farms. And so, when you get down to smaller lots, maybe the farm is just a farm.
Right. Yeah, you don't have a big barn structure and greenhouses and
weddings,
lots of equipment and
wineries, whatever else we have.
Right,
Lots of stuff in
there. Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 2 strategies: improve and reuse town-owned historic properties, such as the Worthington Meeting House, and work with owners of historic properties to add properties to the National Register of Historic Places, whether individually listed or part of a new or expanded district. And an example property that came up in discussion was the Nelson Augustus Moore property. We talked about that at one of our thematic meetings, how that's an example of a property that, should be listed.
I think High Road, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the one on High Road.
Equestrian farm.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Question.
Yes. I wanted to
That
make sure I
house was
have
the
the right
first
one.
house to have a concrete or a permit for concrete in Connecticut.
That stone house, the Tudor one, that
Yeah.
brick, that English looking house. That's a beautiful old stone house. That's absolutely gorgeous.
You have a lot of incredible historic resources in town, yet you just have one historic district and not that many individually listed properties.
Yeah. No, that's a good one.
Okay.
Yep.
If I understood, just FYI, if I understand something that the real estate agent involved with the property talked about, is that one of the houses, I guess it probably is that house on the property, has an easement around it, preservation easement.
Oh, okay.
Or some mechanism. So
Okay.
it's interesting to meet with her. But I don't know much about it. I don't know the snippet from that thing.
Okay. All right, so that rounds out our review of the recommended implementation items, and we look forward to receiving back a markup from you in whatever format you can get it to, whether it's just a a list or the document actually marked up digitally or by hand and delivered by hand or scanned in. We'll take it in whatever form.
Whatever format it comes, hopefully.
Yes.
Do you want to give us a deadline? You want to give us a deadline?
Do we have a deadline?
I think
Yes. How about 2 weeks from today? Does that work? So let's look at that actual date.
November 14th.
The 26th, 9th, November 9th.
The day after the election?
Yeah, maybe we should go for Monday of the following week.
No, I'm not gonna let you extend into the following week. Let's go with the 11th. 11/11. How's that?
That's fine. I'll have it by the 9th.
To have it returned by us.
Okay, because we need time to digest.
Hours, so I can get it to
By Friday morning, so that I can get it to anything I need to get to
Okay.
Francesco. If I get it on the 10th or early the 11th, we should be able to get it to Francesco at the end of that week.
Okay.
Does that sound
That'll
reasonable?
give me a chance to work.
Yeah.
Francesco,
Before my surgery.
you agree?
Yeah.
Francesco froze.
There you go. Who's doing it?
I don't know if he can hear us, but he is definitely frozen.
Oh, he said it happened in Bristol, right?
Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yes.
Okay. I just needed some affirmation.
Francisco's frozen in time here. He doesn't leave us.
All right, well, it's already 9 o'clock, so I guess we can just make an adjournment, right?
Okay,
You want to set up the next meeting? Oh, he's back.
There we
I
go.
lost you all. I'm back.
He came back. Sorry, guys.
Oh,
You're
right.
stuck for a few more minutes.
It's fine.
it's fine. It's good. It's good. We're good.
So as I mentioned,
Oh, no.
Okay, so we're
I
going to take over for him.
Here we go.
There he is.
We're back.
Go ahead.
okay, and I probably need to reshare my screen. So let me do that now.
You froze again, you know. I don't know if you knew that.
Okay. I'm back, you're back, we're all back, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to business.
So we did have scope with the town to review the zoning regulations, and so we conducted.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the grid's tired.
You're going 2 hours, we're not letting you go anymore.
But we did want to be thorough. So that's all on the preceding slides, and I'm not going to go through all those now, but only to let you know, we identify those opportunities in low potential.
I'm gonna let him know.
Yeah, again, I'll fill in, but low potential or high potential, again, just in terms of the number of units that, you know, might be created, more affordable units, not necessarily, you know, what's qualitatively the best, you know, action. So just keep that in mind when you go through your review of that section, that's what that means.
Okay.
It keeps dropping on me, but I am done.
Okay.
Quick, give us a date.
Our next meeting, Maureen, you're working on a date, correct?
We were trying for the 21st
Right.
of November. It's a Monday.
That works for me.
The great thing about that is Francesco's supposed to be in town, so it should be
I am.
in person as well as
Right.
help with other matters that are, you know, files or whatever, you know, he'll be here.
Okay.
And so the 21st is the desire. What time? Do we have a time? Do you have time constraints?
I'm open. I'll leave it up to the rest of you.
Dark earlier, so
Yeah,
if
so
6
an issue for
is
me.
okay with most. That's a nice time. 6:30 is another.
6:30,
and 7 is
wonderful. Sometimes 6 is tough because I'm getting out of work at 5 and Chris has appointments and stuff. I barely made it to ordinance.
6:30 then?
That would be, if
Yeah,
you
that's
got
fine.
time, you're okay with that?
6:30.
Very good.
Thank you
Next
for
meeting,
coming.
November 21st, sorry, at 6:30 p.m.
All right. Well, that concludes my presentation.
All
And
right.
I think this was an incredibly productive meeting, so I appreciate your contributions. It's very helpful, so thank you.
You guys did some good work. Thank you. Now we have homework.
I
Thank
do. So do we. So do we.
Now you can go back to your next town.
Oh, that's it for tonight. Good.
All right, that's good.
I'm just gonna say what comes after us.
Bethel. Have a good night. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good night,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Brian. Second by Sandy. All those in favor? Aye. Steve Biella, you're online?
Night.
Yes, good night. Okay. Aye. Thank you, Jim.
Good night.
Yeah, enjoy.
Thanks.